Anytime we get ready to take an action or we have something coming up, we often spend a lot of time discussing what's at stake. We've been talking about it all week. And it struck me that I wondered, do we ever step back and say, was it all worth it? Do we look at in the aftermath of what happened and were all of those frustrations, worries, concerns justified? Or were they just things that helped delay us figuring out how to take our next step? We'll discuss all of that and more on episode 853 of today's Antidote.
Stay tuned for today's Antidote, brought to you by the Renegade Success Network. Today's Antidote features a healthy dose of thought-provoking insights and information for business owners, entrepreneurs, leaders, and nonprofit professionals. Each day since March of 2020, this program has offered that one thing to help you continue on your own unique pathway to success. And now, Renegades, we bring you Bob Graham and Tom Brush.
Good morning, Tom.
Good morning, Bob. How are you today?
I'm good. We kind of missed yesterday. I missed you.
I missed it as well.
It kind of threw my whole day out of whack. Things just didn't feel normal all day. I was like, something's missing. What is it? Oh, it's my Tom time.
Fair enough. Yes, indeed. I was feeling a little frustrated about that. And I had a lot to do, and I just kept moving through it yesterday. So,
and look, the world's still here.
For the moment, who knows what could happen?
Might be a great example of where we can talk about the aftermath.
Well, that's an opportunity for that. There's no doubt.
There you go.
There is no doubt. All right, everyone, welcome. Good morning to today's Antidote, our daily broadcast and podcast. Each week, Bob and I pick a topic, and we have a conversation around that topic each weekday. And we dive a little bit deeper into it. All week long, we've been talking about what's at stake. And today, we're going to talk a little bit about about the aftermath. Sorry. So often, what's at stake, we think about that in the beginning. Do we consider it afterwards? And understand whether or not all that concern was worth it or not. And as we go through that conversation, if you have thoughts or ideas that you'd like to share, please feel free to put them in the comments, because we know that'll add value to the show, and you'll share your insight, which we know can have an impact on us and maybe someone else as well. And then at the conclusion of that conversation, Bob and I will each offer our one thing, our today's antidote, that thing that we hope will help you figure out when you maybe happen to be stuck, frustrated, worried, uncertain, lacking a little confidence, to figure out how to take your next step so that you can move forward and find some confidence and control in all the things you're trying to accomplish. Before we have that conversation, though, Bob and I share our celebrations every morning. Bob, what are you celebrating today?
So yesterday was the 40th anniversary of my high school graduation.
Wow.
40 years. And there's a Facebook group for the people I graduated with. And I was not in the in crowd. I wasn't a freak, a jock, this, or that. None of it in high school.
Not a judgment?
It is a judgment.
Just curious. Okay.
I think it's a fair assessment. I was kind of geeky and worse than I am now, probably. Big teeth, just bad. And clueless. Not like you you were
a little bit of judgment there. Bad.
No judgment
clueless,
whatsoever.
Geeky.
But in this Facebook group, I posted a question. What's one of the things you learned from after high school? Something you wish you had learned in high school that you learned later. And it sparked a conversation about how we are all very similar and that there were so many differences, that we saw so many things differently. I posted, my answer was, we focus so much on differences, not similarities. And as I've gotten older, I realized most of us were going through the same things. We just handled it differently and had different surroundings. And it sparked a really interesting discussion among about 40 of the people that I went to high school with, just about how they were in high school and how they are now, and how some of them had regrets about how they treated other people, which was really interesting to hear, because I was someone who probably was a victim of some of that criticism. We'll call it criticism. And at times it had an effect on me. So it was interesting to see that 40 years softened people.
Are you saying the results can change over time?
Sure,
Is that
Tom.
what you're saying?
Yes. It just took 40 years.
I'm not sure that's the case. I mean, clearly they were. You don't just wake up today and be like, "Oh yeah, I look differently at it now." I think there's the possibility that over the 40 years, they have been at different times. Things have happened that have impacted what was real for them and caused them to consider things a little differently.
And 2 days earlier, or 4 days earlier, on the 4th, it was the 40th anniversary of our prom. Don't ask me how I know that. I just knew that. And so I posted a question: who did you go with, and when was the last time you saw them?
You were
Which was very interesting. We'll just move on.
Why are we moving on?
Because we'll just move on. But one of the people said, "I have no idea." And that was the funniest answer.
It wasn't the person you took, was it?
No. I know exactly who I took.
Well, you do. Do they remember that? That was why I asked the question. Maybe they've forgotten.
No, I'm not in communication with that person much anymore.
Was there a reason why you posted that?
It was just something that popped into my head.
Did they respond?
I wanted to mark the two occasions somehow. And there's this Facebook group that I've not been very active in. It can be a little cliquey still, but I just thought that I would share my value. And I've played with Facebook groups enough to know how to get some engagement. And it was also a way to see who was still around. Now, I'm going to tell you, Tom, of the maybe 40, 50, 60 people that interacted with those two posts, if you lined up all of them, I might be able to give you the names of 3, maybe 5 of them. That's how outsider I was in high school.
Okay.
Very different experience in high school than yours, I think.
Did the person that you went to did the prom with post in any of that?
No, they didn't go to that school. She did not.
Oh. Fair enough.
And interestingly enough, I did not go to her prom. I went to her prom with her best friend.
Okay.
She didn't want to go with me.
I don't know what's going on in Baltimore.
And I still married her.
Okay. Fair enough.
There you go. Crazy, right?
Interesting.
40 years changes a lot.
Time is an interesting factor in all of this. So fascinating.
Yeah. And it probably speaks to our topic.
Sure.
Because I think if you think back to who you took to your prom, I remember that being the most important thing in the world. And now doesn't resonate. I'm not even sure I could find a picture from it if I tried.
Don't you think that's the way it often is? Whatever that thing is that is most in front of us is the most important thing in the world at the time. At least that's what we believe. That's our perspective. That's what was real for us in the moment.
Mm-hmm.
And over time, we look back and say, everyone's going to have a different opinion on it because they're going to judge what happened at prom. And then decide whether it might have been the most important thing in the world today. Who knows? There might be somebody who was like, their date wasn't nice to them, so they ditched them. Somebody else did the same thing. They met and they're together today. And you might say that the most important thing to them was the prom. Still the same. Possible.
Well, I think, and that's the challenge, right? And so much of it's wrapped around emotion.
Certainly.
And now as I look back on that whole time period, my emotions around high school were very, very powerful at the time. But over the years, it lessened. And so now I can look at it like, how would I say, looking at it like 10th grade history class. I know I did it, I know I passed, but I don't remember what test I took. I don't know what we covered in 10th grade history. I don't remember the day-to-day feelings around it, but I remember it happened. And I think in our business lives, we go through that, right? Or as leaders, we go through that. You know, you have the big presentation. Oh, I'm talking to the board today. Or I've got a big client meeting. I've had big client meetings that were life and death. And now if you ask me to name one of them, I can't for the life of me right this minute tell you one life and death thing that I did in any point in my career. I honestly, like right now, I can't think of it.
Well, it's about our perspective. Because I think right now you realize that it wasn't life or death because you survived it. Which may be the only justification you need for it to not feel that important anymore.
Well, because if we survived it, we figured it out on some level.
Or we found a way.
Right.
I don't know that we ever truly figure it out.
Ed's with us this morning, and we're learning more about Ed, peeling the onion back this morning. She had to ask me to go to the prom. I was into quarterbacking. And I like the way he says that, like I was into quarterbacking. Like I picture him just walking around the house with the football in his hand, carrying it like a baby.
He probably did.
And then he follows up with, in business, I recall most everything in clients' names. Okay.
Most everything, he said. Not everything, most everything.
There are times when I forget former clients' names and they pop back into my head.
Well, okay. Sure.
How about, what are you celebrating this morning?
So I am celebrating, it's probably the reason that I thought about this topic when I was thinking about it was, I feel like in some ways I'm in that spot in the moment. I mean,
which spot?
The spot of it's the aftermath. I mean, I started the week knowing that I had a number of things to do. And that was going to make for a challenging week. I think one of the things as I look back on it now is that I know I stressed a little through the week. And I think even having the conversation about what's at stake helped me not be as stressed as I might have been. Like, I don't know that I ever panicked this week as I try to think back on it. Which I think is signs that I was starting to see that maybe what's at stake wasn't as great as I thought, because I had been through some of those things, similar things before, and I had a way to sort of attempt to deal with them. And I got some results that I had no control over. So obviously that had some help. I mean, if something had gone not the way I planned completely, I might be thinking differently about it. Although I think that I would still go back and say, okay, what could I have done differently? And, so I think I'm celebrating the fact that that I'm at the aftermath, let me put it that way, and still trying to learn from everything that has gone on this week. Like, one of the things that's interesting, we had this conversation Monday or Tuesday, I think, about, or maybe it was last week, I can't remember, about sort of looking ahead at your schedule and trying to understand those times that you could block things off. Like, this would have been a good week for me to not take 3 presentations.
Really?
Maybe, although it worked out so far. We'll see. And so I was thinking, driving home from my presentation yesterday, that I know I have at least one, probably 2 weeks in the fall where I have significant lacrosse events that I know are going to take effort. And I was just thinking about that today would be a good day to go in and block out that week, those weeks.
Yeah.
As a way to sort of prepare and learn from what happened this week.
Okay. Ed's got a follow-up comment. I could toss a football 77 yards in high school. Whoa, that's legit. That's 3/4 of a football field for you folks not paying attention at home. Question is, could he throw it accurately? Could he just throw it that far, or could he get it to a receiver, and was there a receiver that could run out 77 yards to get there in time? These are the questions that plague football players. And Kelly joins us this morning. Good morning. Great perspective in reframing what could have been a very stressful week.
Thanks, Scott.
And then Ed adds, good luck, Tom, with your reps.
Thanks, Ed. Thanks for remembering that. Yes.
He needs it. And Missy's with
okay.
us, and Missy says, and those weeks in the fall are prime time for conferences and speaking engagements. I still haven't figured out how to say no.
Well, I think that's, maybe you'll find a way to say no. I don't know. That's what I'm trying to think about as well. And here's the thing. What I also realized yesterday was if I had blocked them out, I may have still been able to accept some things. I just might not have accepted all of them, depending on how much effort and energy it was going to take to be prepared for it. And that would at least allow me to consider, because I know when I booked these, I didn't really consider what else I had going on that weekend, because it was not in my weekday calendar. It said, oh yeah, that day is open. Oh, great. Oh yeah, next day that's open. And I think now I will at least be able to know that I have a choice that I should consider. Is I have this thing, I know it's going to be a busy week. Am I able to accept this? If I was traveling, I had to travel for those significantly, that would be a different, two of them were, that's not true. One was virtual. So I think that would have an impact on it. And at least I would be able to make a decision, not just, actually I made a decision, I would have more information. Let's put it that way.
So it's being proactive versus reactive.
Well, I think it's, yes, a little bit.
Setting your schedule and saying, I'm going to commit to this is how I'm going to manage my schedule. I'm going to block out from 12 to 5 these days because I have to do this. And I'm only going to take a speaking engagement if it's between 9 and 11 a.m. And I'm only going to take 2 of them that I have to travel to. If there's a third one and it's virtual, I would do that. That's proactive scheduling, right? Versus, there's a presentation at 9 a.m. and then I have to drive 3 hours. And then there's another one at 1 p.m. and then I have to drive 3 hours back. And then I have a big meeting I have to manage. And I think we tend to overbook ourselves when we don't proactively look at it. I see Ed adds, the team effort allowed me to throw accurately. And yes, it was accurate. Okay, thank you for clarifying. I was just giving you a hard time, Ed. And Kelly says, maybe it's not that you are saying no, it is saying yes to self-care, which I think often gets lost in the shuffle.
Oh, certainly.
And also often we aren't at our best because we don't take care of ourselves. I've overbooked and the result has been I'm not my best self in some aspect of my life. Missy says, I call it that the tyranny of the urgent. Ooh, I like that. Anytime you can use the word tyranny of something, it's good. I like that.
Okay.
I just think it's one of those great, powerful words. So our topic today, and this moves right into our topic, I think, is the aftermath of what's at stake. And I think we've kind of talked about it indirectly so far today a bit. And I think as we go through it, I think we tend to what am I trying to say? I don't know. That never happens. That was weird. We tend to say that the effects are greater than they really are. Overstate. That's the word I was looking for. We tend to overstate the effects in the moment. And later, I think we tend to either overstate them and keep telling ourselves that story or minimize them. Oh, that wasn't a big deal. Ed could very easily be, hey, I was a quarterback, I threw the ball. Or he could say he threw it 77 yards, which sounds like his fact. Or he could say, you know what? I'm the best quarterback you've ever seen. And he could tell any of those 3 stories in his head, and the effect would be very different to him and the people around him. I see he's got another comment. Towson State wanted me. Back then it was Towson State too. We're going way back. And my family's self-destruct and wrecked my 9 years of training. Oh, that's unfortunate. So is some things in life, and I had to refocus my mind in life, and that's what happens to all of us, right?
Maybe. I mean, I think one of the challenge. I think sometimes for those of us who find a way to move forward, yes. For others, there are situations like that that let us stick in judgment and not be able to move forward. I mean, a lot of all of that is a judgment, I think. Right? How did it go? What happened? Why did it happen? What did it, all of those things are just sort of like judging, blaming, doing whatever rather than learning. And I think, as we've talked about before, it's easy to say you're just going to learn from all of these things. And yet it's many times more difficult to do because we're human. We're going to have an emotional reaction. It's going to have an impact on us. And just trying to figure out how significant of an impact it is, who knows? And I think, it's interesting as I was thinking about it, I think one of the challenging things, it's easy to say that, it can be easier to say that afterwards, well, it wasn't that important. And I think it goes back to our conversation about your prom is that, well, we don't know that.
Our conversation about your prom, that's the funniest thing in the world.
We don't know that at the time. And again, I would say the same thing is like this week, had I, had things gone differently, or this weekend, if things go differently with the officiating tournament, the impacts could still be significant. It'd be one thing to be like, oh, don't worry. What do I worry? I'm just going to throw in another presentation because I do presentations all the time. They're easy to figure out. And who cares that I've got something else going on? I'll figure it out. And I think what could happen, which is a possibility, is they all don't go as planned. And now that does have an impact on me and how others see me. Which would be like, well, why did he accept all these things? And because, our clients at this presentation thought it wasn't any good and it wasn't well prepared or thought out, and what if we don't get enough officials? People are going to be frustrated because, somebody might have to be in the field by themselves. And fans will be upset. They'll be upset. Why didn't they do a different job of assigning this? So I think, because we don't know the results, it's easy to build up the expectation of what is at stake. And, I think at the end, the regular thing to do is to judge how it went. So it's easy for me now to say, oh yeah, it wasn't so bad to do 3 presentations in a week. What was I worried about? Because they went, I thought they went well and people had feedback that was helpful. And we can get stuck in that. And so again, I could be just like, hey, you know what? I don't need to plan out my weeks. I have this tournament, a couple tournaments in the fall, and they might have some impact. But if I got through this, I get through that. That's easy. And we don't learn from it. And I think that, again, is the challenging thing is once we judge it, it's easy to keep judging it. And because we can't see the future, we can't know what the results are, we don't control them. If we stay too stuck in that judgment, it can whack us in the face when we least expect it. If we take the time, effort, and energy to figure out what did we learn from that, and then apply that in the future, we might reduce the opportunity of getting smacked in the face. So if I go in, and again, I could say, and the tournament this weekend could go without a hitch, and I could be like, well, that was easy. Why don't I do 4 presentations next week if it's opportunity and it's available? Awesome. Or say, yes, could I do it? Maybe. Is that what I really want to do? Or could I look at things differently?
Ed shares nothing is impossible with vision. It occurs to me as you were speaking, Tom, that as we think of the aftermath, we always think about how it affects us. But if we're engaged with other people, there's an aftermath that is every other participant. So if you run a meeting and you have a horrible meeting, it could be that that meeting was the most powerful meeting in the world to someone else. You told me that you were greatly affected by 2 statements a speaker made, I believe on Tuesday or Wednesday. There could have been people like, that's the worst speaker in the world. That speaker could have said it was the worst presentation I've ever done, or the greatest presentation, or I kind of just phoned it in because I needed to be somewhere else an hour later. And I think we tend to look at the aftermath, the effect on us and our role, not thinking about the fact that, if you have, I don't remember how many games you have this weekend, but that's a lot of girls getting to play lacrosse. And if you didn't do what you did and just said, I can't satisfy this need for the number of officials, and so we're not going to do it, and no one gets to play lacrosse, how do you not know that for some girl, this might be the most important day of her life because she scores a goal and 50 years from now, she can look back and say, just like Ed, he could throw the ball 77 yards. He's got that for the rest of his life. So I think we tend to focus on the aftermath from our own eyes without thinking about the effect that we have on other people. And you and I see this with this program all the time. At least once a week, one of us is always saying, hey, I talked to this person. They were saying they really enjoyed the program. And we always sort of take it like, oh, that's really great. I don't think about that usually in the morning when I'm thinking about, oh, my God, it's Friday. What was I thinking? This would have been a really good day. We skipped yesterday. We could have skipped today too. I'm not thinking about the aftermath that way. I'm thinking about the aftermath, the effect on me and my life.
Well, we're the only ones that's the only ones we can more readily pull up, right? I can't get into, unless someone comes and tells us. We have no idea about that. Like, I could just go out in this tournament this week and just be another tournament.
Right.
And I could look back on, how I assigned it, the calls that I made, those type of things. And unless someone says something, I would never know that someone 20 years from now looks back and said, that was one of the most enjoyable experiences of my career, and it helped me figure whatever out. So I think that's always the challenge, is our perspective in the grand scheme of things is pretty limited of the impact that it has and all the things that are going to happen because some number of people got together or some number of people were aware of a part of something that you did, some value that you shared. We don't always know. And I think that's one of the challenges is we think no one is. I don't know how many times there have been discussions around this show. Nobody watches this. Why do we do this? Nobody cares.
I say that all the time.
I didn't want to call you out.
Well, it's not you, it's me.
And I think that we truly don't know. We just don't know. I mean, we know who comments. That's one thing that we can, again, that's the feedback that we get. Then there could also be a lot of people out there who say that's the worst show ever. I don't know why those two knuckleheads get on there and do this. I don't get any value from it. Okay.
They probably hop on and laugh the whole time.
Or they just don't take the time to check it out because they're like, well, what would those two have to say that might be of value? I don't know.
Can I shift gears for a second, Tom?
Certainly.
One of our Renegade Success Network members, I was talking to him yesterday, I think he might be listening right now, encouraged us to be more clear about how we help people in the program. They were giving me some feedback, and they said, I know you guys have your Renegade Success Network. He's a participant in it, and he said you should be more clear about how you help people. This discussion today is the kind of discussion that we have with some of the people that we help around what is the aftermath? How do you manage your time? How do you look at things? Because so often we get caught in our own head. It's so easy to be caught up in our own head. And having that outside perspective, that person that can look at something with you and not be critical, not be judgmental, not be, why'd you do that? But asking more questions about, oh, okay. So what was something that came out of that was positive? Or what was something about that you might change? Or how might you celebrate the fact that you took this step? That's one of the areas that when we're helping people, that's a big part of it. And this person said to me yesterday, I know what you do because you do it for me, but I don't think other people understand exactly what you do. So I made the commitment that I was going to be more clear where I could about what we do and how we do it. So if that's something that interests you, if you want to talk to Tom or me about what that might look like in your business world, in your leadership role, we'd love to talk to you. Simple discussion. Hop on the phone, hop on the Zoom call, and we're going to talk to you and just ask a lot of questions and say, hey, have you ever considered this? Have you ever considered that? The other thing this person told me was, got to mention all the time that we are available to you throughout the week. He said it's really powerful. And I had another Renegade Success Network member yesterday say to me that it's great that I can text you and you can get back to me when I have a need. You don't know how much that helps me be more effective in my work. And I was texted at 9 a.m. and we were on a call at 3 p.m. And it was something that was pretty big to this person that I had no idea was going on. And to be able to just talk to them and really just ask questions. It wasn't telling them what to do. It wasn't saying, how could you do that? It was, okay, help me understand how you got to this place. All right, now what can you do to get to a place? Where do you want to go from there? Oh, I want this to happen. Okay, how can you better negotiate that way? And they couldn't see a pathway. And so the pathway that came out of the discussion was one where at the end they said, well, this isn't as hard as I thought it was. I'm really glad I talked to you. And I think that's what you provide me. I think you see it sometimes on our program that Tom will just sort of coach me through something, or once in a while he lets me coach him through something. But that's what this looks like. And I think the myth is, oh, it's some big, incredibly powerful thing that we tell you what to do and we know everything. We don't, and we don't. So if that's of interest to you, hey, give us a call, text us, go to the chat. I've honored my commitment to that person now, Tom. Keep going.
No, I mean, I think it's an interesting point. And I think it's, and I'm going to share, Ed has a comment that I think goes along to this. Mentoring is the best way to influence people by your own perspective and experiences. And I think that's true. Here's the thing that I think sometimes happens, and it's fascinating. So this presentation I did on Tuesday was to a group of leaders who are, they're leaders in one way, usually in their business, or they're developing leaders in their business and trying to find ways to be more connected and engaged to their community. And as I was looking at, I've spoke to this group, I think 3 or 4 times before, and it's a class. So it's a cohort, they go through it, and then there's a new class each year. And I think in the past, and even with the other presenters, like the ones that I heard, were telling their story about how they participated in this in the past. This is how they got to where they are. And as I was thinking about that, as I was preparing for the presentation, one of the things that struck me was that's all those people were explaining what they did. As an example, kind of like a mentor, which I think has enormous value and is, if you have people in your life that you're looking for that could be helpful, a mentor is one of them. Here's the thing, which is why I did what I did with my presentation, is I wanted them to consider, what is it for them? Like, where is it that they want to go? And I think that's a little bit of the difference between a mentor and a coach, is the mentor kind of helps you say, well, here's what I did. And here's what you can take from that and sometimes figure it out. Yet often I think we feel like, well, if that's what they did to get to where they are, it's what I need to do to get to where I want to be. And while I think there is some value in that, examples are helpful. What I tried to get them to do in my presentation was them about looking at themselves and what is it that they want? What is it that they want to get out of this? What is it that they have available to share? And how do they go out and find the opportunities to be connected in the community that work for them? Not just what their boss says, what they think should be on their resume. The way so often I think people get involved is, well, this will look good, and this is something I should do. And I think what we find is one of the reasons I believe that in boardrooms, was having this conversation in the presentation yesterday. We have board members who are uninterested and aren't really paying attention. They had the best intentions. They thought this was what it was going to be about. They felt like it made sense to go work, with this nonprofit, and they were doing a good thing. Yet it wasn't their passion. It was there for another reason. And I think that's why they sort of sometimes lose interest. And when we can find out and figure out, which is what I was trying to help the group on Thursday do, is figure out what their passion was. Tuesday. That rather than tell them what I did, I want them to discover what they want so they can then go out and find it. And I think that's the challenge. Is so often in our times, people are telling us either what they have done or what they think we should do. What we ask them to do is what do they want to do? Because we can see things for them that they can't see for themselves. Because as you said, we're in this bubble, and sometimes we're so concerned about who we know, not as much about who knows us. And do they really know us? Or do they just know what they think they see about us?
Ed adds, in addition to being a mentor, you can glean information to you as a mentor to grow in your perspectives. And he adds this other thought: what goes around comes around.
Sometimes.
So.
It doesn't always come around, I think, in the ways that we think.
I would agree with that.
People can take value from us and share with someone else and someone else and someone else, and somehow it comes back to us. It's an interesting. That's one of my favorite books out there. I haven't mentioned this in a long time. The Go-Giver by Bob Berg.
Wow. It has been a while.
I know.
That's being reckless to not bring that up.
I know. He shares that it doesn't. That's
the other thing you haven't said in months.
Doesn't have to be win-win situation. We can win by putting our value out there, and we get back when others, sometimes that person, and not always, share their value back as well. So I think it does come around in different ways.
Do you have one thing?
Yes. I think that my one thing is did you want to go first?
No, you're fine. Go
Usually
ahead.
You ask if I have it, then you say, okay, it's great, because I'm going to share mine.
No, I'll let you go first, please.
No, I'm not playing that. Go ahead. Share yours.
No, I was really letting you go first. It's fine.
Okay. I think when I think about my one thing, it is about the aftermath and what's at stake, is finding some harmony in that what's at stake. That, yes, it matters. And yes, it doesn't matter probably as much as we think it does. It's going to have an impact, yet we don't know that in the moment. And I think that's the thing. is so if we can just do the best that we can do, given what we know at the time, and not judge that, rather figure out how to learn from it, and understand that we don't have all the answers. We can't predict what's going to happen, what questions are going to ask, how people are going to feel. And so if we put the time, effort, and energy in that we believe will help us share our value, we have the opportunity then in the aftermath to learn from it rather than judge it. And I think maybe that's the big piece of it is, I think we see the aftermath as a time to judge. I like to look at the aftermath as a time to learn.
I like that. That's great. I was going to just say very simply that we tend to worry about the aftermath, and we see it, we magnify it, and we probably don't need to. I see Ed's got a great comment. We've got Heckle and Geckle, Tom and Bob. I guess it means you're Heckle, which makes me Geckle.
I wasn't sure who was whom. Who was whom?
Well, based on the order he put the comment in.
Which I know frustrates you because you always like to have your name first.
No, I don't. That's not true.
So what was your one thing? Did you share it or did you?
Yeah, it was that we tend to magnify the aftermath of things, both positively and negatively, especially in the immediate aftermath.
Of course.
And I give my example from high school. I was so worried about how people saw me after high school and through high school. And now, whatever. I think if I went to a reunion with all the people, be like, "Oh, Bob, hey, how are you? I see you're doing this and this and this." I'd probably be, I don't know, maybe even someone that they liked. Crazy.
So, is your class having a reunion?
They're very informal. It's usually at a bar in the Towson area, like on a Saturday when 20 of them can get together. The cliquey crowd tends to do the reunions. And I did go to my 10-year reunion because I had my 5-year reunion was actually the weekend of my wedding. The 10-year reunion was obviously 5 years later, and went to that one. And it was quite the experience because I was on TV a lot then, locally. So I was a legit star in a sense. So that was fun.
So, given all the interaction to your first question about and the engagement and what sounds like a fascinating conversation around who we are now and who we were then, don't you think it might be fun to attend that reunion and continue?
I think it would. I think I'm in a much different place in a lot of ways now, and I think I would go with open eyes in a way that my father said to me years ago. He always went to his reunions, and I could never understand it. It was a significant drive for his college reunions and his high school reunions. And he would go and he'd say, after about 20 years, all that stuff doesn't matter. And it was interesting that he saw it. It took me a lot longer to get to that place where it doesn't matter. Now they're just people that I have a common experience with, that it would be fun to just be around them. And I think it'd be fun to get to know them now as people that I didn't get to know then.
Sure. Well, and I think it's always interesting that everyone is judging pretty much in high school in some regards. Even the people who say, well, that's the cliquey group. Is that a judgment? Kind of. Even though that might be what they are, it's still, or those are all the athletes, or those are all, well, they're more than just that.
Right.
And I think it's so easy for us to get to that point where that's all we think about them as. And so we've judged them and decided to do something completely different. Just what it is. So I think it's interesting. Who knows?
All right. Well, we've covered a lot of ground today.
Yes. I still think the whole prom thing was interesting that you would remember the exact date. I like that. Fascinating. Anyhow, all right, everyone. Thanks so much for
my life. I gotta say, it mattered at the time. It was really important to me.
Certainly, and then maybe it's a little different now. Maybe.
Tad.
All right, everyone. Thanks so much for being with us, and thank you to Edward and to Missy, and then we had one other person in here.
Kelly.
Yes, of course. Sorry, Kelly. Thank you for your comments. Obviously adds great value to our show, and we appreciate it very much. Please continue to do so. So if you want to join them in commenting, or maybe you're listening to the podcast and you have something you'd like to say, maybe you're really curious about who Bob took to the prom and that whole conversation. Maybe not. Either way, if you'd like to comment, please feel free to join us in our Facebook group, Sculpt Your Business, because we think that it's a great place for you to share your value and an opportunity for you to learn and gain. And I think one of the things about that group is that a lot of the conversations are conversations like this, that yes, can they help sculpt your business? They can also help sculpt the business of your life. And so I think it has great value, because your business could mean your physical business, or it could just mean your business, as people like to say.
Ed adds this comment: in high school as a team leader, most people wanted to challenge me. You understand that, Tom, right? You were a team leader in high school, right?
Yes. And I don't know, you'd have to ask the people around me what they thought. I'm not sure I fit the stereotypical team leader person, because I was also involved in the arts, in the marching band. I mean, some of those things, the play, some of those things that others might say is.
So you were the guy who did it all and won all the awards at graduation.
No, I did a lot. I didn't win all the awards. I mean, my school was fairly small. So if you chose to participate in a lot of things, there were
How many
opportunities.
people graduated with you?
49.
Oh my! I think I had about 200.
Well, we
Maybe
were the
220.
second or third largest school in our county. So
Wow.
think about that.
Ah, reminiscing.
Yes, indeed. All right, everyone. Thanks so much for being with us today. We look forward to see you inside our Facebook group. If not, we will see you Monday morning, 7 a.m.-ish Eastern time for our next episode.
Hey, until then, no matter what you do. Sorry, did I cut you off? I apologize.
That's okay.
Embrace renegading you. It's so worth it. Just give it a shot.
All right, everyone. Go out and enjoy your day and enjoy your weekend. If you want to guess how many steps I'm going to get in this weekend, you can put that in the chat too, because there will be a number of them, I think. And
22,147.
If only. Do you know how many I had last year at this tournament?
Was that the one where you did like 40,000?
I think I did 42,000 one day and 35,000 the second day. So
that's crazy. All right, I'll sit in front of the TV instead.
Okay, fair. All right, everyone, go out and enjoy your day, enjoy your weekend. We'll see you soon.
Hey, it's your opportunity to join the Sculpt Your Business program. That's your Sculpt the Business program. From chaos and confusion to confidence and control. Yes, those aren't just words that all start with the letter C. They're actually things that you can do. Can you imagine what would happen if you went from chaos and confusion to confidence and control? I can imagine it. I've seen it happen. It could happen for you. Find out more. Just ask Tom or Bob.